from Costa Rica. I hope everyone is doing very well today. I'm excited to be joined by three people, James, Brandi, and Teresa, who have done something that I've never done before, and that is visit Panama. I obviously get a lot of people asking about the difference between Costa Rica and Panama, and it's pretty hard to answer any sort of question when you've never been to one of those countries. So James, Teresa, and Brandi, thanks very much for joining me.
We're happy to be here.
First of all, let's go. Where are you guys and what the heck are you up to right now?
We are located just south of San Isidro de General in the Perez Zeledon area of Costa Rica. So it's a southern mountain valley that stretches from the Central Valley area. There's a mountain range there going down, pointing down directly towards Panama. There is the Talamanca mountain range is to the east of us. There is the coastal range between us and like Ubita, Dominical, etc. So we're about, say, an hour to hour and a half to most of the southern Pacific Coast beaches. We're 3 hours from the airport in San Jose. We're 2.5 hours from the border with Panama.
Awesome. Now, I remember we looked at property together, I think of August of last year up here in Guanacaste. You broke my heart and decided not to buy up here in our area, though I can imagine you're probably in cool temperatures. You're looking over incredible vistas where you are, etc. Do you remember that we saw an A-frame teak cabin together?
Oh yeah, because there were some great wood carvings in the cabin itself, like in the stairway going up and everything.
Oh yeah, it's right off of a paved road, which where we were renting in Nosara did not have paved roads.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you guys made the trip up special to see that house.
Yeah.
And I was hopeful because you can see that you guys you're loving the wood cabin you're living in. At the time I was like, oh man, they're gonna visit and buy this. I actually think you were one of the only clients who actually visited that property because the seller, Tony Perez, decided to stay in the house in the end and not sell it to anybody. So I thought it would be fun to have a real estate reunion here on our Real Estate Forum number 20. Tony the seller hosted a showing of Teresa, Brandi, and James now almost a year ago. How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing good, and you guys? Good to see you again.
Yeah.
Good to see you too. We loved the place. It was in an area that we ended up saying, yeah, this is just a little too warm for us. We want someplace a little bit higher in elevation and a little bit cooler.
Okay, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I can understand that. Tony also broke my heart, although I think keeping his place has been absolutely the right decision. He took it off the market. Tony, at this point, are you planning on staying there permanently, or at least for the next few years?
Yes, I think so. Like you know, I have 2 floors, so I'm living on the second floor all by myself. So I'm taking advantage of the whole first floor, and I put it up for Airbnb. And even though it's the low season, it's been almost nonstop for the past couple of months.
Oh my gosh, that's kind of okay. So this home, people can see in the background, the upstairs is actually the top part of this triangle, and it's more like a bedroom. I cannot believe you're renting out the downstairs to other people. Hey.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that, but I'm taking advantage of it at this point. It's basically empty,
That's incredible. Well, I mean, you also have a closet, if I remember correctly. You could maybe turn that into something and put, like an intern or something in there.
Yeah, that's what also separated the entry. I put stairs in the back through the balcony, and I made a small kitchen counter, so I have everything upstairs, and I'm renting the bottom.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us for this reunion.
No problem. Good to see you, man. Good to see you again, guys.
Yeah, take it easy. Appreciate it. So anyway, James, Teresa, and Brandi, let's get to the point. Talk to me first about how you went about researching. you were considering both Costa Rica and Panama. What was your initial research phase like?
Our initial research phase, we used a lot of data from different places. We used, for example, some of the International Living's annual reports that come out, which, interestingly enough, change every year to the new country they want to review. But we used that sort of data. We looked at information from the country's different websites and such to be able to find out all of the background information. And we threw it into a spreadsheet. Both Teresa and I, before we got together, had both decided that when we got older, we wanted to move overseas. We just had different spots that we were listing initially. So we put all that data in, reviewed it, and came down to a list of the top 3. And what we decided was, during the time we had left before we wanted to move, we would take annual vacations, 2 weeks or so, and go to the different countries. So first we went to Ecuador. We liked it, but it was further away from the US than the other countries we were looking at. Then we went to Panama, and then we went to Costa Rica last. We went to Costa Rica last because I was a bit biased. I lived in Costa Rica for a year when I was 25 years old, a few years back. We came and we looked at each one. We stayed with friends in Panama that I had known from Alaska who live in Volcan. We came and saw different spots in Costa Rica other than the Central Valley, because that's where I had lived for a year. So we had the background data. We narrowed it down to 3 countries. Then we went and actually stayed there for a couple of weeks to be able to decide which country we wanted to go to.
Yep.
And I looked at Teresa, we talked, and she said, yeah, I think Costa Rica would be better. And I said, why? Is it just because you think that's the one I want? She goes, oh, no, I think that people are friendlier, etc.
Yeah.
Later on, she said, well, yeah, it was really because I think it was the one you wanted. But at the time, it wasn't that.
Yeah. No, and that's what sort of data, when you were compiling that spreadsheet, what columns were the important ones for you? Was it cost of living, crime statistics? What sort of data could you compile?
Well, everybody should use the data that they find the most important. But for us, some of the things that were the most important were, we wanted to become residents whenever we moved to a place. We wanted to get residency. So how much of an income did we have to have each year to be a resident? That's wildly different in each place. What sort of benefits do each country give towards expats? That has changed, and it changes over time. It changed from when we made our decision. Costa Rica passed a new law, which made it move up closer to where Panama was at the time. What's the financial situation of the country? How stable is the economy? How stable is the government? How stable is how good is the healthcare system?
Yeah.
How good is the internet? Because I work online. I work for an online social network. So, I mean, I have to have good internet access. How stable is the electrical system within the country? So all of those things were very important things to us that we put in our spreadsheet overall to be able to review. And it ended up being more than one spreadsheet. There ended up being multiple.
I was going to say, I can't fathom this process. And for me, it was so utterly different. You know, I signed up for an organization. The letter said, you can go to Costa Rica. And I said, okay. And that was zero research. I actually got off the plane knowing an embarrassingly small amount about, I had no idea what I was actually doing landing here. What have you been up to? So you visited the countries and now you've settled down again in southern Costa Rica, closer to Panama. What sorts of things have you been doing since you settled down?
Well, when we came to Costa Rica, we came back for another trip just to make sure that Brandi, who had come into our family, wanted to also move here. So we had another trip here where actually it was the first time we met you in 2021, right during the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
We spent some time up in Guanacaste because we hadn't spent a lot of time there. And we spent some time in La Fortuna. So when we moved here a year ago in the end of June, we first spent 3 months up in Guanacaste. We spent it in Nosara because we wanted to spend some time on the coast, see what the beaches were like, living on the beach would be like, whether it would be something we wanted to do.
I lived in Florida for 5 years, and I was like, I know heat and humidity. I want to be by the beach. Like, that sounds great. Style of living in Florida is a little bit different than the style of living here in Costa Rica.
Yeah, you go into a lot more air-conditioned spaces in Florida than you do in Costa Rica. That's for darn sure. And so, what were some of those things as you weighed Panama and Costa Rica? Let's talk about the differences that you saw. James, you had briefly touched on, or, you said Teresa was impressed by the friendliness of the people.
Yes.
What, in traveling to both places, did you end up going back to Panama, or did you just do one trip there and decide it wasn't right?
We did one trip there and decided that while we liked it, we liked Panama a lot. Don't get me wrong. We just like Costa Rica better.
Yep.
We have good friends in Volcan, Panama. So we knew that there were 2 or 3 areas which were higher in elevation where you could live. But in Panama, those tend to be further. Most of the people in Panama are in Panama City.
Okay.
Most of Panama revolves around Panama City. So there's only 2 or 3 locations where you can be up higher in altitude and still where they're towns where there are lots of Americans who have gone in those areas.
Yeah.
Infrastructure and that sort of thing.
Costa Rica had a lot more places where you could be in different microclimates and still be close enough to different to hospitals, to shopping, and all that sort of stuff. Whereas in Panama, we found that most everything settled around Panama City. The vid is grown quite a bit, so that helps people who live in Boquete and Volcan, for example. But still, it's
much more concentrated. Well, and so interestingly, I wanted to touch on really quick, for our viewers who did not Wikipedia the 2 countries just before our broadcast, Panama has about 4.3 million people living there, whereas the population of Costa Rica is almost 1 million people bigger at 5.15. But very interestingly, the number of foreigners currently living in Panama is only 38,000 people, the number of foreign registered residents, whereas in Costa Rica, the number is 138,000. As an initial gross number, I think a lot of that has to do with, yes, Costa Rica has enormous opportunities for Nicaraguans who come down because their economy is so poor, and there's a big section of the population that is that. But also, yes, we've been growing, infrastructure in a lot of places for expats to be able to settle. It has, Costa Rica has these communities available, and as a result has a bigger, immigrant community. What are some of the other things that you guys noticed, differences between here and there, maybe culturally or, and just sort of how people are?
When I lived in Costa Rica in 1985, one of the things that struck me about Costa Rica was all the trash that was on the roads and everything else. In the years since then, that has changed dramatically. There's been a huge cultural shift.
Yeah.
We shared one picture with you to show that cultural shift has not happened in Panama. There's a picture that we sent to you that was from Paso Canoas, which is the city, the biggest border crossing between Costa Rica and Panama. And there is literally a strip of land right down between the Costa Rican side and the Panama side. On the Panama side, there was trash all over the road, all over the sides of the road. On the Costa Rican side, it was clean.
Yeah.
No trash on the road.
Yeah, well, and that, that single evolution is, more people than you might imagine cite that difference because, yeah, traveling in the developing world can be a real bummer when you get there and you realize that there's no garbage service. And so, like in Morocco, these beautiful ancient cities that are covered in garbage because, what are people going to do? The same is true in Nicaragua. They just don't have service. They don't have the infrastructure nor the cultural revolution that has happened to make trash in public places unacceptable. And it's so refreshing here. I really think that for anybody who values driving around beautiful landscapes, it's a night and day difference, Costa Rica versus other places in that regard.
And speaking of infrastructure, one of the things we've been researching as well is looking into like electric vehicles. And obviously, Costa Rica, far above Panama, but anywhere in Central America, have put a lot of money into developing their grids so they can promote the sale and resale of electric vehicles here, which is important to us as well.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's kind of, yeah, it's so unlike so much other stuff happening in Central America where there's, they're focusing on very basic services and issues. With electric vehicles are a pretty bougie thing to be dealing with. Hopefully, bougie is not an unpolitically correct term. I'm sorry for all the bougie people watching out there if you're offended. I also wanted to mention, Dimitri had put together some statistics. We were looking at tourism numbers between Costa Rica and Panama. In 2022, for example, Panama received almost as many international visitors as Costa Rica. It was 1.9 million international arrivals in Panama and 2.2 million in Costa Rica. Interestingly, and I think this is a direct result of the Panama Canal, in Costa Rica, 54% of the visitors were from the US. In Panama, it's only something like 22%. So they've got a much greater diversity in the kind of tourism that's coming through. Did you guys notice that sort of dynamic? Did you feel like there were just like fewer Americans around and more of sort of a world vibe? Or how did things look on the ground in that sense?
In Panama City, yes.
Okay.
But outside of Panama City, it's not like in Costa Rica. In Costa Rica, you can go up and down the coast in Guanacaste and have many different towns that you could stay in. The tourism is developed up and down the coast. It's that way on the South Pacific coast. It's in La Fortuna. It's in lots of different areas. In Panama, you have the canal. You have Bocas del Toro, which gets some people. Although I got terrible sand fleas there. I hate it. But that's basically it. The other areas are very undeveloped in terms of tourist potential. We traveled to some towns and such along the coast. There wasn't the same sort of infrastructure set up that there is in Costa Rica. So in Costa Rica, you have lots of different places that you can go to and see those things. Whereas in Panama, yes, it was more international, but it was more international mostly around the canal.
Yeah, I was going to bring up your location again. Can you get from here all the way out to the Pacific coast on paved highways? Do you have to go through the Central Valley, or can you come down through?
Nope. There's two ways to get to the Pacific coast on paved roads from where we're at. You go up to San Isidro and you come over to Dominical. That's the main road. That's the 243 coming through the mountains.
That's all paved. Okay. Again, after the landslide, temporarily unpaved it. But
last year, yes. And you can also go down as if you're going down towards Panama, down to Paso Canoas, down the Inter-American Highway, and then the Costa Rica Sur hooks up with the Inter-American Highway down there near Golfito.
Okay. Yep.
Get there highway either way.
It's where the river that runs by our new house, where it's being built, dumps out into the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is all virgin territory for me. I really haven't done exploring in the southern areas of Costa Rica. And So yes, I'm inviting myself down there. But
Yes, we can do that.
but first of all, when is your new home going to be finished? Just out of curiosity.
It's supposed to be finished by the end of September.
Okay, brilliant. So you guys are very close.
Yes.
Supposed to be finished.
We've got the house that we're building. We're doing a container home. There's a company in Cartago, Contenedores, Costa Rica, that is actually building the units themselves, and they'll be bringing them down here. But we're having basically 2 containers on either side with a large roof open area in the middle, the big, huge open space in between
Wow.
containers. So it's very much outdoor living, which is what you really have in Costa Rica. Most of our house will be open to breezes coming through. It's the temperature here gets up to about 80 every day. It gets down to maybe 60. It gets down to 50 in the low upper
It's
50s.
winter.
In the
During
winter,
season.
we're a little bit cooler.
But it's that way year round mostly.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to. No, I mean, I'll be excited to see progress, and you can send us pictures of that as well. We should also do a discussion comparing Guanacaste to where you've settled. One of the quick things I also wanted to touch on that was interesting from our research, just a chart that we had found. You know, comparing the different countries among Central America, this is the immigrants and emigrants represented in yellow and green circles. And you can see that in Costa Rica, you have about a 520,000, what is that, 370,000 person imbalance between the immigrants and emigrants from the country. There are more people coming in than there are leaving. That's the same in Panama. You had about 200,000 more people enter the country in 2020 than you did leave. But you can see in the rest of Central America, unfortunately, the panorama is not very bright. There was mass numbers of people leaving from Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, and actually Belize had net positive migration as well. And Mexico was also a big negative. So anyway, to me, you can see Costa Rica is a place where people are generally migrating as a trend in the world. Do you all feel happy with your decision having chosen Panama versus Costa Rica?
Yes.
I'm sorry, having chosen Costa Rica versus Panama.
I did, especially since I didn't go on the initial trip with them, but James and I had to do a border run to Panama in December of last year. And we had heard tales of be wary of the border guards because on the Panamanian side, because they tend to be grumpy and not like Americans very much. And it was definitely proven, even though James knows quite a bit of Spanish, was speaking entirely with the border guard in Spanish. And I thought it went well, but then we found out later he was saying about how Americans don't contribute anything to the Panamanian economy. We're like using them, and I was going like, we're going to stay with our friends in Bopan for the weekend. Like, we're gonna spend money, okay?
Well, and it's funny how, to me, I 100% agree that there's injustice in the world and capital flows and everything. To me, it's ironic that a Panamanian whose country was forcefully separated from Colombia, whose country basically became a neo-colonial zone where we took our own 99-year lease on the most important strip of land in Western Hemisphere's history. And he's complaining that you guys aren't going to spend your tourism dollars there. Like, then you guys, we invaded you 20 years ago.
To give you the comparison, Matt, he was saying that as we were going into Panama, and then he said those things to us because we had the same guy when we left Panama.
Yeah.
When we got over to the Costa Rican side, we're going through, we went through immigrations, and then we went through customs, and the customs guy is running out to try to catch the bus for us because it's leaving ahead of schedule, and he's going, "Oh, there it is. Let me go try to catch it for you." That's the difference. One of them was going, government workers have a reputation worldwide, not any particular country, of sometimes being really, etc. In Costa Rica,
horrendous. You can say bad adjectives on my channel. They take money from people crossing borders.
They tend to be a little bit maybe not working really hard or something, doing the job, but just that. But on the Costa Rica side, here's one going out of his way to help us.
Yeah.
Versus on the other side, being almost upset that we're coming in. It was an entirely different perspective, and we've seen that a lot. Here in Costa Rica, when we go in, we have to do things with government workers, wherever. As long as you're happy and kind and are trying to speak Spanish to them, they will usually bend over backwards to help you out.
Yeah.
We can find that in other places.
Yeah, and that's the single, when I've spoken with people who visit Panama and Costa Rica over the years, the single greatest difference is that they cite the difference in friendliness, where here Costa Ricans are absolutely the warmest, most inviting culture they've run across in this region. And in other places, they felt, there was definitely a different reception. And I love it. Obviously, it makes life a lot easier for me as a realtor in Costa Rica, bringing people into this culture where people are so warm and welcoming. I did want to mention, not everyone is completely warm and welcoming when it comes to Costa Rica real estate. In our segment, the Rager of the Week, that I completely forgot to bring up until right now. But anyhow, let's see our winner. Get the drum roll growing. We will eventually have a drum roll sound effect here. Our Rager of the Week is related to an affordable ocean view condo that we put up for sale. 240. We get a comment that is very helpful from Doug DeLeo. 240,000 for a condo. 4X's what it's worth. Prices are getting scary crazy. 2 years ago in Guanacaste, area condos were anywhere from $60,000 to $85,000. Seems RE agents jack the prices to make huge profits. Pump and dump. Thank you very much for your Rager of the Week, Doug DeLeo. I want to say that, first of all, it's important to address the difference between realtors and the people who actually sell the property and make profits. When realtors get involved, yes, we do have a slight interest in property selling at a slightly higher cost, but really, we're not the ones pumping nor dumping anything because we're not the buyers or sellers of real estate, but instead just the people helping other human beings do so. I also want to talk specifically about the condo in question here. And if I'm able to pull it up on my thing here, browser, we will discuss just a little further how helpful your feedback is on the value of this particular condo. If you want to look at this 1,700 square feet piece of real estate that actually sold for exactly $240,000 prior to the 2009 real estate crash, I'd love to explain to you how it costs a little bit more than $60,000 to $85,000 to build something in Costa Rica fully out of concrete, this close to the beach. That's 1,700 square feet. And I wanted to ask Brandi, James, and Teresa, have you personally seen any of these $60,000 to $80,000 condos that were just on the market a couple years ago in Guanacaste?
No.
I can't find them either. If you do be sure to send me an email. My address is right here below us. My name is Matt Rosensteel. I guess I hadn't even mentioned that until now. I'm really grateful to see James, Teresa, and Brandi again. Thanks so much for your comments on Panama versus Costa Rica. Folks, we are here live every week with awesome Costa Rica real estate information and amazing people like these folks. So be sure to subscribe, like, comment, contribute to my channel. Be sure to tune in next week, Friday at noon. Pura vida and take care, folks.
You're